Hi, thanks so much for joining me today. I'm Danny from TheGlitteredRose. You can find me under that name on Instagram and also over on Amazon. Today I thought we might have a play with a little jelly plate and create a fun sort of textural background. Give that a try and use one of the images in my brand new book, Fascinating Faces, from my series, Not So Fussy Cutting Club. So this is the project that we're going to make, and the background's nice and textural without having to use any modeling paste or anything like that. So we'll make this page using a jelly plate. Anyone who's new to my channel, I've just popped out 2 books on Amazon. They're available worldwide. And the idea behind Not So Fussy Cutting Club is that I'm not a huge fan on fussy cutting. So, Not So Fussy Cutting is just me poking fun at myself, not fussy cutters, just me. So, this Fascinating Faces is just full of lovely imagery. I'll be sure to put a link up the top here of a more thorough flip through so that you can have a look. I'll also pop a link in my description box where you can grab a copy for yourself along with Dark Secrets. So I'm going to start a brand new art journal for this. It's a little bit smaller than my other one. I usually do a double spread, but for this journal, I'm just going to do single pages because I think they work a little bit better for YouTube. They photograph a bit easier and it just makes for a bit of a quicker video. All right, if you want to see how I use it's a really small gel plate. Shout out to my mum. Thanks for giving it to me to test for this video. Yeah, stick around, hit the like button and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so I thought I'm going to use this girl because I think she matches the front cover of my journal really nicely. And I'm going to cut her out using this deckled edge ruler. I just got a set of these from Amazon really cheaply. What I love about my books are that they're the premium paper, so they're nice and thick. So not only do they tear really well, but they're glued down really nicely. So they glue down over modeling paste and a lot of texture. And they don't warp and carry on. All right, I'm going to cut this down to size and then I'll be back. Okay, so I've just popped out a page out of my art journal. I am able just to remove them. And I'm going to stamp a background. Any stamps will do. This is just a nice stamp set from Tim Holtz. And I'm just going to randomly stamp this. It's just a nice light, sort of sketchy stamp set. The most important part for this is stamping in permanent ink. You don't want it to run because I will be using water later on. All right, I'm going to get all these laid out and then stamp a couple of times because this watercolor ink will soak it up. So I need to stamp a couple of times. And I'll just fill in some gaps with some finger stamping now. Doesn't have to be perfect because it's mostly going to be covered up anyway with the image. And oops, that's looking pretty good. I'm just going to heat set it now and then I'll be back. I just like to try and plan out my colours. So I'm going to go with Fossilised Amber, Wild Honey, Carved Pumpkin, and Brush Corduroy. I think that those colours should go quite nicely together. And I have a tendency to start with my lightest, but I don't think it particularly matters. So on my Gelli Plate, I'm just stamping that down and then spritzing some water and then dipping it on. And so straight up, I can see that the result is different than when I use a matte. It isn't as sort of as fine. When you use your silica matte, you really get the fine blobs on there. This looks like it's sort of not as dispersed as well. I guess there's a much smaller area as well. It looks cool. I like the result. We'll see how it looks when it builds up. I'm going to dry it off between each layer. I do wish I have the just the plain distress pads. I think that'll be my next purchase if I can ever afford them. I mean, it's building up nicely. I don't know. I'm so fond of using the silicone matte. I might be a little bit biased. I think it's nice, but if I had my druthers, I'd probably definitely pick the silicone matte. But we'll see how it goes when the darker color goes on. Sometimes you just really need that darker foundation. So we'll see when this comes on. So my channel hit 100,000 views, which blows my mind to think that my content's been viewed 100,000 times. My super supportive 12-year-old son said it's probably from me watching my own content. Oh, I thought that was really nice of him. Yep, I sit there and watch my own stuff. I've watched it 100,000 times. Isn't that nice? But I just wanted to say thanks for all the support. I may have been hanging out to see that turn 100,000. I'm liking it more as it's building up, but I still think that you get a lot more definition when you use the mat. There is something about these inks, they just smell so nice. Just keep building the layers, it all sort of comes together in the end. Having a look at these results, I would say if you've got a Gelli Plate, try it, see if you like it, but don't rush out and spend money on it because they're not cheap. And there's no real alternative for a Gelli Plate. And in fact, I'm so underwhelmed, I might see if Mum wants this one back. All right, I'm going to dry it off and then I'll be back with the finished background. Okay, so I've grabbed out a stamp from Aall Create and it's sort of a geometric-y shape background stamp, and I'm just randomly stamping it with my finger, so it's not particularly perfect, and it just gives a sort of a repetitive random sort of imperfect stamping, and that's what I want for the background. And then I've grabbed out a Distress Embossing Glaze in a matching color. In Carved Pumpkin. And I like this I like these glazes for some applications. So they're quite translucent and they just really add a little bit um of sort of texture and interest in the background without being too much because they are so translucent. Okay, I've just embossed it. I find it a really interesting product, unlike anything else. So you can see it's quite interesting. It's very textural, and I find it works quite well with Aall Create stamps because they're again unlike anything else really. So they work well. And guess what? I think the first time ever didn't spill any of the embossing powder. It's not all over my table. Maybe I need to take that as a sign to go and buy myself a lotto ticket or a scratchy. All right, so that white on that ripped border is giving me, it's bothering me. So I've just grabbed my charcoal pencil and I'm just going around the outside and colouring that in just to hide it a little bit. Isn't it a gorgeous image? Got these gorgeous cameo charms, but they're so big. So I was sort of thinking of keeping her for the front cover, but and putting one of those cameo charms on it, but it didn't happen. That's better. Okay, so now I'm just edging around the edges with a Distress crayon. And then I'm just going to go in around the very corners with a little bit more, just to bring it in. And then I'll wet my fingers with a baby wipe and blend it in. This ended up being quite an easy art journal page, which I think is fantastic. I don't think that they have to take you hours and hours. Something like this, I think, is quite effective. Colors are beautiful. Something to keep in mind is that you don't need the same products. Like you don't need to have the same stamps to do the background, and you don't need the same inks, just, similar products. All right, I like the edging. Now I'm just gonna glue down a button. I think the gold looks really nice on that background. Brings out those tones. And I like the idea of a black and white butterfly. Sort of tones it down a bit because it's very colourful. But I think the black and white kind of brings out the very sort of heavy background and tones to the actual focal image. Yeah, I like that. I was thinking of colouring in the butterfly, but I don't think it needs it. I think that's a different sort of an embellishment. Pop a sticker on her. Come what may. She's got a sort of a wistful come what may expression, so I thought that suits. I'm going to blend that with my blending stump. really happy with how it's turning out. I think that it's nice. It's a little bit different for me. A bit more colour than I'm used to. Clear up my area. Sometimes I watch my videos and think, oh my goodness. All right, she's looking pretty good. I think I might finish clearing up and I'll grab the album and the journal and we'll pop it in and have a close look together. And here we are, all finished. I have to say I'm pretty happy with the end result. I think that it's gorgeous. I really think the background's really gorgeous. Whether I'd use the gel plate again, I'm not so sure. I'm just being completely honest. Um, it was a quick way. It was really quick. It was a quick way to put down the ink. I think a lot quicker than using your silicone matte. But I do think that you get a lot more interest, a lot more sort of grunge using the matte. So I think I'll probably tend to pick up the matte. But if you know, if you like that look more, then go for the gel plate, the jelly plate. I did have fun doing it, and it was fun to experiment. And I really did love, of course, using another image in my new book. So if you want to grab yourself a copy or even have a look at it on Amazon, all you have to do is search The Glittered Rose or check out my link in my bio. Um, Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate the time that you spend with me. Um, I also really appreciate all the support with the likes and comments and shares. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Let me know what you think about the gel, using the jelly plate. If you like the result. I think that the page is really gorgeous, but I do think that I probably would have liked the result a little bit more if I had used a silicone matte. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Till next time. Bye for now.